Welcome to episode 180 of the Campus Comics Cast. And if we only had one power to join the Legion of Superheroes, what would it be? This is Scott, Mass Teleport Reed, and I'm joined on this episode by
Mike Colossal Atchison.
And Shad, Be Everywhere at Once, Schubert. I don't know. That's what I got.
And in this episode, we will discuss the first 5 appearances of the Legion of Superheroes, a little bit of what we've been reading, some listener feedback. Mike is going to embarrass me with some trivia, CLZ shake. But basically, we just mentioned if we were to join the Legion, what our one superpower would be. So, Mike, do you want to explain Colossal? That's not an innuendo thing, is it?
No, but it doesn't hurt. So I'm, when we off sort of like inside baseball here, we were talking about pick a power, and I'm looking at a picture of the Legionnaires, and I'm thinking there's too many of them that have a power that would really be either kind of redundant, like Superboy or Mon-El or Ultra Boy, or kind of lame like Light Lass. There are some that are pretty cool, but then in reality, would I really want to have lightning powers and not really control it well? I mean, it's kind of limited to just fighting people. So I thought it would be really cool to be Colossal Boy and just to scare the crap out of people. Just grow to, 100 feet tall. Probably don't have to do much except do that, and then people will run away. So
your basic decision on your power was the ability to torment other people.
Bad people. Villains.
Oh, just bad people.
Just villains, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, come on.
Right.
What kind of guy do you think I am?
So, omnipresent Shad, what is it about omnipresence that
That's a great name. Omnipresent
Yes.
lad.
I tend to
bringing
overcommit
new
myself.
meaning to voyeur.
I tend to overcommit myself and want to be everywhere. I've got a little bit of FOMO, a little bit of fear of missing out. So I want to be everywhere and commit to everything. So I think that would be a great superhero power. So I could commit to everything.
Oh, okay.
I like that.
Well, I got to
reasoning, yeah.
Yeah. Well, mass teleport to me is like a no-brainer because it'd be like, I want to be at Heroes Con next year. Boom, me and my friends, we're at Heroes Con. Boom, I want to take a cruise to Alaska. Boom, I'm in Seattle ready for the boat. Boom, I want to go to Antarctica. Boom, there's a penguin. So, hey, I think I'm in on the mass teleport. I have no idea what my Legion name would be, but
Gates,
that's my power I would want.
The closest member, which isn't even in the original Legion, or even like it wasn't until probably the 1980s that a Legionnaire that had those powers came about. Now his name was Gates, and he was one of the few like non-humanoid looking members. So
you'd have to look a little weird, Scott. That would be the only thing.
I would. I don't know that I would have to look a little weird. I could look normal, I think. So there's also an X-Men that has this power, and I'm trying to well, no, not the mass teleport. Nightcrawler can basically just teleport like one or two things and himself, but they actually had, and the funny thing is he was an Aboriginal, and I cannot remember what his name is. And it's just bugging me, so maybe I need to improve my search here just a little bit. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We don't want to talk about the X-Men. We want to talk about the Legion of Superheroes. So the Legion of Superheroes, our first 5 issues are going to be Adventure Comics 247, Adventure Comics 267, Action Comics 267. That's an amazing coincidence, I think. Superboy 86, and then Adventure Comics 282. Now, Mike, you want to give us an introduction to the Legion of Superheroes?
Absolutely. And I know that you said you were talking about the X-Men, but whether that was Freudian or not, there is quite a bit of connection between the Legion of Superheroes and the X-Men, in that Dave Cockrum, who designed many of the characters probably around in the 70s, designed many of those characters and was turned down by DC when he was trying to introduce some of them. He ended up turning them into X-Men characters, such as Nightcrawler. So the original thought was, I forget what name he had for Nightcrawler at the time for the Legion, but the stuffed suits at DC didn't think it was, thought that was wasn't good enough. So, Marvel benefited by that. But as far as the history of the Legion, I just wanted to talk about how they were created by Otto Bender and Al Plastino. Bender was one of the most imaginative writers in comics history. I mean, he created Supergirl, Krypto, Brainiac, Bizarro, the Bottle City of Kandor, almost all of those Superman-related mythos, the Phantom Zone. He also wrote, going back farther, past the Silver Age into the Golden Age, he was with Fawcett, and he wrote a huge number of Captain Marvel and the Marvel family stories. He also went to Quality for a while and created Kid Eternity. And Plastino, you can almost always recognize his style. It's very clean. One of the more I always liked him better than some of the other Silver Age artists, including Kurt Swan. I just thought he had a nice look. I'm trying to think of the one that was always sort of barrel-chested Superman. But anyway, I like Plastino as far as Silver Age artists. So yeah, it's just a lot of, I mean, the creativity that went into the Legion was not a mistake. The people that were involved came up with a lot of good stuff over the years.
All right. So, Mike, since you probably have the strongest history with these characters of the three of us, what was your first interaction with the Legion of Superheroes that you remember?
Well, I think I remember the art more than I do the stories, but it had to be one of those Superboy, the Legion of Superheroes in the early 200s, like 215, 217, whatever, with Mike Grell art. It just is burned into my brain like you wouldn't imagine. I even bought a sketchbook that he had at Heroes Con of the Legion, some of his Legion characters, and I don't know who was writing at the time, whether it be Levitz or Shooter, but it was super impression. I was very impressed, and it stuck with me. I just don't remember the exact issue. I probably had Grell sign the one issue that I thought maybe was my first, but it was in that era, early 70s.
That Grell run must have been pretty important because Mike No at Muddy Monster Comics, when Mike Grell was at Cape, yeah, I believe he had him sign that first Legion of Superheroes book that Grell worked on as well. So
yeah, if I'd have thought about it, I would have gotten my, got a couple of them out and mentioned the numbers, but it was just phenomenal. It was kind of like when he was the next Neil Adams. I mean, when you think about how groundbreaking Neil Adams was, especially at DC, because they sort of transitioned from some of the artists that weren't, I mean, it's not to say your Carmen Infantinos and people like that weren't good, but Adams broke the mold, and then Mike Grell was right there with him, and you just can't beat it.
Shad, what about you?
Mine was the Legion of Superheroes Archives Volume 1, when we decided to read about the Legion of Superheroes.
So pretty recently,
I have zero history with them whatsoever. This is my first.
Oh, okay.
Never too late.
Well, this is one time where I'm very confident in my memory on this particular topic, and I don't know if you can see my screen or not.
One of those temple.
Yes, but I am ultra confident that this Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, this was a Tempo book that was released in 1977. It's black and white on the inside. I'm confident that this is when I first came into contact with the Legion of Superheroes. I remember this for some reason was on a bookshelf at my grandparents' house. And I don't know if it's something that they just bought for me and left it there. So I know I read this book 3 or 4 times. And as a younger reader, I don't know how soon after 1977 I came into contact with this, because again, my first book was Avengers 184, which is within a year of this time frame anyway. So believe it or not, I probably read Legion fairly early in my comic reading career, but basically, except for this book, I didn't read anything else Legion on a regular basis up until Bendis started his run on Legion of Superheroes. I'd have a few things hit and miss, and the only thing Legion that I would ever seek out would be Legion of Substitute Heroes because of that Keith Giffen special, and then of course the DC Comics Presents, which I didn't discover until also much later as well. But this Superboy and Legion of Superheroes tempo book, I almost, whenever we were talking about doing this and I had that flash of memory, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this book. I jumped on eBay, almost ordered a copy, but I talked myself out of it for now. So
if you want a copy, I have one. If you want that nostalgia feels.
Well, I maybe I just want to look at it and then let you have it back.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know what I'd do with it other than have it up for the first time, because again, it's in black and white. I think you miss a lot when you don't have color with the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That many characters, and
yeah,
you need to have those colors break out.
Because their designs don't really differentiate much between the different Legion members, at least in these earlier ones, it seems like.
It's almost just the logo on their chest is the only thing that kind of know the difference.
Yeah.
And of course color pattern, but without black and white, you don't get that, right? So
yeah. Well, I love those tempo books too. My first tempo book was a Justice League one, and it caused me to search out the original issues that were covered or reprinted in that book.
I think that's the only of those tempo books that I've ever seen. That I remember. Yeah, and it's probably the only one I've ever owned. So
yeah, that's cool.
All right, so Mike, what are your initial thoughts on these versions of the characters? Now, I did make a list of the characters, and you can tell me if I'm missed any here. And I'm going to save one discussion related to this for later. But we've got Cosmic Boy, Lightning Boy, Saturn Girl in the first issue. Got Cosmic Boy, Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad in the Adventure 267. Action 267, we add in Chameleon Boy, Colossal Boy, and Invisible Kid. Superboy 86 is really just kind of a flashback thing, so we don't add any characters there. And then Adventure 282 is Starboy, who I'm not even for sure if that's actually a Legion character or not.
He is.
Okay, all right. So then we get Starboy. So of the named characters, did I miss anybody?
In these issues, no.
Okay,
I think you got them all. Yeah.
Okay.
They were. These first few issues in Adventure Comics and Action Comics were just rife with first appearances.
Okay, so back to the question, Mike. What are your initial thoughts on these versions of these characters?
Well, it's all like retroactive feelings because, these versions were not my first experience with them. So it's sort of, it's kind of charming in a way, but it's also very silver agey. I think you have to really acquire the taste for it and just know what you're getting into. They weren't written the same way as they were later on when they were young adults in the 70s. But it's interesting how much they evolved quickly in the first few instances. Like you said, Lightning Boy became Lightning Lad. You had you just had different. Even the outfits changed. There was, I can't remember which ones changed, but there was there was they evolved quickly in the first few issues. But as far as they compare to nowadays, it's I think that the essence of them is there. They have somewhat the same personalities. You have the ones with the strongest personalities, the ones that aren't as strong, the ones that are more hotheads. You think about Wildfire and things like that. All of that is carried over. But I say nowadays when it's actually not even, they don't have it ongoing right now. And I read some of the Bendis stuff, and they really changed as far as costume design and their whole appearance, but the powers were basically the same. So, right. Yeah.
Shad, do you have any thoughts on, since this is really the first time that you met some of these characters, do you have any initial thoughts? Because I'm assuming you don't really have anything in the future to compare them to.
Yeah, I don't have a comparison. I thought the book felt it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon, kind of in book form. Like it was very much.
Welcome like to the Silver Age.
Is that really okay? I was like it's fun in that way. And the only thing that really stood out besides that is that like they're as the Legion goes overall, and really anybody in these books, they're so manipulative to everybody. It's
yes.
Like, they're not really like nice, good people. They're kind of like just trying to mess with people's emotions and gaslight them until they get what they want.
Before gaslighting was even invented as a word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Legion of gaslighting.
Yes, exactly. But that's kind of my initial thoughts for sure.
I guess my initial thoughts is you can clearly see where the current versions of the characters come from, which I don't really have a whole lot to say about the original version, and so maybe we can kind of talk about how they have changed over time. You know, what's become different, what's the same. Kind of a couple of things that I remember. Well, not that I remember, but is that it moved away from being a club. Right, and it's even got superhero club over the door, you know, in the one issue, to being more like a universal police force, you know, so on par with like the Green Lantern Corps. So that really is like a substantial change to me. I don't know, Mike, you want to elaborate further on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was originally designed to be a place for teenagers with powers to, you know, get together and like you said, be in a club, but it wasn't until the United Planets and R.J. Brand was sort of I don't know when he was introduced as the benefactor of the Legion. He's the one that gave them the money to build their clubhouse and to, you know, have their interstellar transportation, their spaceships, etc. But that is about the point where I think you had more of that connectivity across the cosmos. It wasn't just, you know, it made it look like it was just in our solar system or just nearby. But once you get more characters that are, you know, from planets at the far end of the galaxy, and you have the backing of or at least maybe the supervision of the United Planets is, you know, that concept was invented in Legion stories. So that made it really cosmic, and I think it was one of the, even though if you look at a picture of them, they're largely humanoid, if not all at this point, all the way up until the 80s. The only ones that weren't like white, male or females, was probably Shadowlass, who had a blue tint to her skin, and Brainiac 5, who was green, and Chameleon Boy, who was kind of an orange color. For the most part, they were white. And so when I say they're diverse, it was more in the sense that they came from a lot of different planets. So yeah, that wasn't until Tyrok that they actually brought a black human into the Legion, and they didn't really do him right either. So
so this is a spot, Mike, where you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a memory that it used to be, to join the Legion, you only could have one power, because if you had too many powers, you were considered too generic of a hero. Am I misremembering this? You know, I'm not asking you for like specific issues or anything like that. I'm just asking you, is that the case, that was the case for a while with the Legion?
It was something like that, but they always found a way to get around it. It was more like it was about not having, you couldn't have the same power as someone else.
Okay, all right.
So, but yet they got around it with Mon-El and Superboy.
Mm-hmm.
Your power had to be somewhat unique, and then you got Ultra Boy, who had the same powers as Mon-El and Superboy, except he could only use one power at a time. So that was the unique factor. But you know how it is in comics, or especially in Legion and Silver Age, they work around some of these things. But but what you said is cool, because I always thought, well, at least they have some rules. You know, it wasn't just every rando that comes knocks on their door.
I always thought that was a dumb rule, because I mean, even from the beginning, they were based on Superboy, and Superboy has all this plethora of powers. Okay, inspired by Superboy. And he has all these powers, and they make it so that the person that inspires them couldn't actually be a member.
Yeah. You know, like I said, it all started when the original three were deciding how to trick Superboy, you know, and gaslight him, and then all of a sudden it caught on. Remember, they didn't plan on this to be a success. This was meant to be a one-off story, so it was like, whoa, do you see the response to that? We got to create more Legion members, and so it evolved over time like that. Whereas at the beginning, it was just meant to be just like any other Superboy story.
Any other story from the Silver Age. It's like,
wonky,
if you get more than one out of it, you've accomplished something.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know, Shad, do you want to add anything about, again, it's probably not an area where you feel like you can add, but changes from the original version to like what you're aware of now with these characters?
Well, I actually I had a question in relation to that instead, because I don't really, like you said, I don't really know, but in like current day, when we have had Legion in things, is it young Clark Kent still, or is it a son of Clark's that is in the Legion typically? Because I like the aspect of it being young Clark stories, but I didn't know if that carried on.
So the Bendis run, I can speak to the Bendis run. It was actually Jonathan Kent, Superboy, who then went to be with the Legion in that particular story.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Now I'm still under the assumption, even in that version, it's still the Clark Kent Superboy that's the inspiration for the Legion, but Jonathan Kent gets to spend some time with the Legion.
Mike, stories. Okay.
Yeah, Mike, is that your recollection of that as well?
Yeah, for the vast majority of the history of the Legion and Superboy's involvement, it was Superman as a boy that joined.
Cool.
So when you're time traveling in their time bubble, it's pretty easy to do that. They went back when he was a boy to Smallville, and he joined, and he would go back and he'd spend days, months, or whatever with adventures there, and he could go back to the 1940s or 1960s, 50s or 60s, and not miss a beat. You know, it's a day later, whatever. So he's living, you know, in a whole nother life there. And it was the same way eventually with Supergirl too. You know, when she joined, but it wasn't until the Bendis run that they, you know, after the I should also say this. With Crisis on Infinite Earths, it basically eliminated one of the things that John Byrne insisted on is that he got a fresh boot with Superman whenever he took over the Superman books, or at least action. And DC said, "You're a big star. We're going to give you what you want." But that caused us to lose all of the Superboy stories, because Byrne wanted Superman to start as a man, you know, start with his, you know, adventures as a man. So that eliminated. So Paul Levitz and other creators, they basically created because Crisis got rid of all the multiple Earths, they didn't have another Earth to go to, but they did create this pocket universe from which the Superboy from Clark Kent's youth could exist. Crazy, yeah, but that's what they made work, and it kind of somewhat satisfied the fans. So
was that Superboy Prime, or is that a different iteration of Superboy?
That was a different. Superboy Prime was from Earth Prime, which is where we live. You know, our Earth, where there's no superheroes until he came about. So in Crisis. So anyway, yeah, it wasn't until until Jonathan Kent came about, until he was, I guess Bendis did. Well, I don't know who created him. Maybe that was Peter Tomasi when they had the Super Sons. But anyway.
Well, it was actually Jonathan Kent came about during the DC Convergence event.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Now I don't remember who wrote that. So
yeah.
I don't know who actually figure on that. Now the other thing about the Legion is it's always created some issues for DC, because during Flashpoint, right, which led into the New 52, there were some Legion stories, and they talked about they lost the ability to travel to the modern DC universe because they couldn't get past, and they even thought they couldn't get past the Flashpoint to go see what was before. So it kind of affected their time travel for a while. So again, it's always something they've had to deal with, the whole time travel aspect.
Yeah.
Of the Legion. And then another memory just sparked, I'm sorry. So you have those Alan Moore stories, the last Superman stories from like Action and Superman, and they come back the day that Superman quote unquote dies. The Legion comes back and talks to him, and then they go away before all the stuff that happens, that where he, of course, spoilers, he didn't die. But
oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's always this thing with their time travel, and they can show up whenever they want, opportune times and such. So they're interesting, and it's always, that's why I was excited about the Bendis run, because like here's a chance for me to get back in and like kind of get in on the ground floor for what the Legion's going to be like moving forward. And they just it ran 8 issues, and then it was done, and it was. I was actually enjoying it. It was very wordy, but I was really enjoying the Bendis run because it was almost like this slow burn to reintroduce the characters, and for me it was nice. And I tell you what, one of the things that I really enjoyed in that run was the relationship between Jonathan Kent, Superboy, and Saturn Girl, and that obviously did not get explored further.
The whims of
missed
popularity.
Out there.
It was a shame because I agree with the slow burn. I thought Bendis was. I wasn't a big fan of that iteration, but I could see that he was trying to roll it out slowly, but then it just stopped. And I don't know if that was him or if that was the editorial or the company, but I think the Legion of Superheroes is one of the most underutilized, wasted, underrepresented, whatever concepts in DC Comics that I just think they could do so much with it, and for some reason they haven't.
I got one other comment on like this version compared to the original version. So the implication in that, especially in that first issue, is that the Legion members that are part of the superhero club, well, they're not the real heroes. They're children of parents who are the superheroes at the time, and they're just kind of like, well, we're going to grow up and we'll just have our little club and stuff like that. So it's like they're not even trying to be like heroic. They're just they have powers, and that's just what they do. So.
There was a lot of evolution too in the equipment that they used. Like they started out with, I didn't even remember this until I reread these this time, but they had jetpacks. And for quite a while, at some point they transitioned from jetpacks to fly to flight belts. And then eventually they went to flight rings. And now the flight ring has become definitely the iconic way for them to, they've got the L with the star emblem, and that's more recognized than anything else. And there's just other things that, and it's huge. It's a huge team.
Shout out to Dan Brown, because I think he wore his Legion flight ring quite a bit, if I remember correctly.
He wore his Green Lantern ring probably the most.
Did he? Okay, I remember the flight, but I just maybe missed it because they did those promo giveaways, like where you could buy a bag of flight rings or buy a bag of Green Lantern rings. I probably just misremembered which one he was.
I've got one of the flight rings. They're the plastic ones, but he's got one of those like real heavy Green Lantern rings. Yeah. That's what I always remember.
Apologies, Dan, for getting your ring wrong. Okay, now I want to talk about let's talk about some moments in some of these issues. So I want to put everybody's attention to Adventure Comics issue 247, and I want to go to page 6 because we talk about, they're only introducing like a few of the Legion, and I guess I'm in the wrong issue. Hold on, so Adventure Comics issue 247. Nope, I was in the right one. And I had in my notes page 6, page 5, page 6. Okay, it's not page 6. I lied. Oh, it's okay. It's page 5. I'm sorry, page 5. So that middle panel, we only have the 3 named characters there, but we got the back of 4 heads. Now, one of those heads is clearly supposed to be Brainiac, or at least becomes Brainiac 5 later on. I don't know, Mike. Do you know if these other 3? Can you tell just by hair color and ear shape these other Legion members?
I don't have my tablet with me.
Oh, okay.
But it's possible, because I have a note here for one of the later issues of the first 5. I know I am almost. Yeah, could be. That's not as clear as the one. Yeah.
Page 11, you get a better front of, I think, the Brainiac one.
The Brainiac, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Oh yeah, with the yellowish hair, I'd say that's very likely. I don't know which one. Yeah, I think that's a good possibility, because I didn't notice that, but there's a later issue that we covered where it's. I mean, you can see the green. That's it right there. The green skin.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 267?
That's the same. That's 247.
Okay, so it was in the same issue. Yeah.
Yeah, so but we only have 2 of the 4 pictured there. So whoever it is over Brainiac 5's right shoulder, the
now
guy.
it based on his clothing, it looks like an early Timberwolf, but who's to say that?
Yeah. Okay.
That brownish, yeah, or maybe Invisible Kid. He had the original one had that color clothes.
I just realized who we will get a comment on that particular interchange there.
Okay.
Okay. So, what are some other moments for each of you that kind of stood out in these 5 issues?
Well, I've got a few. I liked in 247 the reference to Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days with their little Around the World in 80 Minutes space tour. I thought that was pretty clever. Typical Silver Age on page 4, the teacher isn't really at all taken aback by the appearance of the real Superboy that he was just talking about. And then they replaced, they used the real Superboy to replace the Superboy robot. So these were really hilarious. And, all of the powers having the adjective super in front of them when they're describing Lightning Lad, he's got super lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn Girl's got super thought casting. Cosmic Boy has super magnetism. And that made me remember that Keith Giffen, I heard him talk about this in an interview where he said that that's what made him, it just broke him on Karate Kid, because they said Karate Kid had super karate powers. So what did he do? He killed him off. So yeah, there's a lot of Silver Age stuff, like making Lightning Lad or Lightning Boy making lightning letters in the sky. I guarantee you're never going to go through a Silver Age Superboy, Supergirl, Legion story without somebody crying and having a lot of sobs and chokes in the dialogue. But yeah, it has that kind of charm though. So I enjoyed it for that. I just love that stuff. And that's just the first issue, 247.
Oh yeah.
So I'll let somebody else take a turn.
I've talked about a good portion as far as, moments from those first 5 issues that I want to point out. So you can just go, Mike, and Shad, you can just jump in when you want. So
yeah, the moment that was, I think it was in the, oh gosh, I don't remember what numbers, but there's a Superman situation and a Supergirl situation where they're both digging tunnels.
Yeah.
And I didn't, when I think about like superpowers that Superman or Supergirl or Superboy have, digging is not one of the ones that are high up on the list. And so it's like, what is the coincidence that both of them end up digging in these Legion issues?
That was one of the biggest tropes of those 60s stories
really?
with Superboy and Supergirl, was their ability to tunnel. And they would do it almost every story. And it's so cool to hear somebody that's seeing this for the first time talk about it, because it is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, really? That's what you're gonna do? Just spin and.
I mean, of all the things when I think of those people, I don't, the list of their traits or their abilities, and good digger is not like one of those things. It's like great at building tunnels. So that was a standout for me for sure on those. It's like, and I there was a part of me that was like, oh, they're doing the exact same thing with Supergirl. And part of me was like, oh, they're really just doing it again. And then I appreciated the fact that they didn't have any qualms with just doing the exact same thing. And that was a standout for me, was that the brilliance of just copy and paste and just unabashedly just doing it was just like, I guess good on you.
Well, it's like, we got a deadline. What are we going to do? I know, let's redo that story, but put in Supergirl instead of Superboy.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Well, that power would not be. It was maybe outdid by, in Adventure Comics 267, towards the end of the story, Superboy resolves the whole issue by using a super shout, which causes vibration strong enough to change the molecular structure of the element causing the problems in the first place. So his super shout saved the day. It just, hey, back then, coming close to plausible believability or whatever wasn't a concern at all.
Well, you know what? We can complain about that then, but I loved the John Byrne Man of Steel limited series.
Mm-hmm.
And in that limited series, and I think I've mentioned this before, there was one scene where somebody took a photograph of Superman, and he had the super ability to realize that he had been photographed by somebody. And it's like, what? What type of nonsense is that? So as nonsensical as some of these seem, they're still, and John Byrne is generally considered a great creator, but you can throw some nonsense out there too. So
yeah.
I think that's why I relate it so closely to, like, it felt like Saturday morning cartoons, because it's like the Flintstones was just so ridiculous sometimes, and you just kind of roll with it, and it was just funny, and it was a good time, especially as a kid, to just kind of like, you didn't question it, it didn't matter, you were entertained.
The willing suspension of disbelief.
That's right. Yes.
Yep. What else you got, Mike?
I think it peaked out of these first five. I think I liked number 267, the second appearance, the best. I like that story the best, at least. Action Comics 267 was pretty good. That's where we got the introduction of Chameleon Boy, Colossal Boy, and Invisible Kid. But we also, again, got the weirdness of the Silver Age, where Supergirl's alter ego was Linda Lee, and she hit her robot in a hollow tree. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it's just.
But he does it all the time.
Yeah. And then I thought the last couple of issues that at least are listed as the fourth and fifth appearance of the Legion are, not really. I guess the fifth is, but the fourth definitely isn't. And that's Superboy 86, where, it's just basically a brief appearance by Lightning Lad, and then another couple panels with the cameos or the flashback of the original three. So, and then you had one Legionnaire in Adventure Comics 282. Starboy, that was, I think, his first appearance. I didn't write that down if he wasn't, but it was such a teen angst story with Lana being jealous that Superboy was giving his attention to another girl, and then so she just started fawning over Starboy, and it was just all this, again, manipulation and
well, romance comics were bigger at this time, so they kind of had to lean into that just a little bit. So I can see that. It's, to me, this is kind of like one of the things, like with Amazing Spider-Man, is that for a long time he wasn't an Avenger. He couldn't join the Avengers because some people thought he was a villain, or they wouldn't reveal his secret identity. And do they do this a lot with, like, Supergirl, where she can't join the Legion because like here it's like, oh, the kryptonite made you old and now you're too old. So is that like a long running thing with Supergirl where she can't join because of something always keeps happening?
It was the duplication of powers issue that kept her from being able to be joined. I'm almost sure. So she was. I think Mon-El got a pass because he was stuck in the Phantom Zone for like 3,000 years. So they're like, hey, we'll give you a break. You can hang out with us. But they weren't going to let Superboy's cousin Supergirl join with the identical powers.
Well, but the reason she gets rejected the first time is
this time because she aged to a woman. Yeah. But I don't think they figured out the duplication thing yet.
Okay, that came later on. So I'm flipping through Adventure 282 here real quick just to make sure there's not anything else I want to say on that one. But do you got anything else, Mike?
No, I was kind of bracing myself for what I thought would be not that enjoyable of an experience, but I legitimately enjoyed these 5 issues. A couple of them not as much as the rest, but you just put your glasses on of this is the 60s and this is what comics they were targeting a certain audience. And to be honest, I really liked them when I was a kid. Clearly these are some of the books that were gateways, even though they were kind of old even when I started reading, but these kind of stories were the gateway into me reading comics. So it has that feeling for me.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
I on some of these issues, I read the other stories in the issue because like there were some Green Arrow stories, there were some Aquaman stories, and the Legion stories are way better than the Aquaman and the Green Arrow stories. I mean, they are not great. So it's like, I finally stopped reading the other stories because they were sometimes a slog to get through, but the Legion ones were pretty good. So
I will say something redeeming about the Aquaman stories, and it had Ramona Fradon's art. That was some of her earliest stuff, at least consistent. She drew, oh my goodness, years worth of Aquaman stories in Adventure Comics.
Yeah, I was just referring to the reading.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I didn't even bother reading those other ones because I've read a few in the past. I'm like, oh, this is kind of a waste of time.
I think I got through Adventure 247 and 267, and then I stopped reading anything else that wasn't Legion in them. So,
and just what you said, Scott, about between 247 and 267, you're talking about almost 2 years gap between the first and second appearance, which, we're talking about the late 50s, and it did take a while for them to realize they had a hit on their hands, but they hit the ground running after that.
So I think, Mike, you already mentioned your favorite issue of the 5 was
267. I didn't write it down, but going by memory, I think that was the one where I enjoyed. It was a big step up from 247, I thought. Yeah, so we'll say that.
I'm going to agree with you, Mike, on 267 being the best one. Chad, did you have a favorite?
I think 247 actually was mine. There was something about just setting up that premise. I think even just the first couple of pages were probably my favorite, and like them just approaching him and being like, "Hey, Superboy," and he's like, "What are you talking about?"
What?
Yeah, that was a kind of a funny interaction to me that I didn't expect going into it. So I think that it caught me by surprise that their introduction was like kind of calling him out, and so that kind of quickly became my like, I kind of like that little thing they did there.
That's something you would do if you were a teenager from the future and you just were able to time travel and you'd pop in on somebody. Hey, what's up?
Hey, Clark.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't mention this earlier, but I don't know where Cosmic Boy quit wearing the bubble helmet over himself, because he wore it in the first issue, the Adventure 247. I don't know where he stopped, but I can't figure out why he was wearing it to begin with, unless they just thought for appearance's sake. I don't know. That was a difference.
He never has it on his head. He holds it in one panel in 247.
Is that right? So it must have been just in the cover.
He never actually puts it on his head. Yeah, he's got it like under his arm at one point in time, and that's it. It's so weird. I never even paid attention to it until you just said that.
He has it on the cover, though.
So, Mike, do you plan
Okay.
to seek out more stories with the Legion of Superheroes?
I absolutely would if they would just publish them. I had heard years ago that Robert Kirkman, or no, I'm sorry, Jonathan Hickman was a big Legion fan,
Oh,
and he always wanted to take on that series, and I don't know, man.
Make it way more complicated than it needs to be.
yeah, and you would see like an issue every like 5 or 6 months. I feel like with him, or he'd get like 4 issues into a 6 issue series and then not finish.
Yeah,
That.
I know. I mean, it's
Oh,
just I'm just capitalizing in my mind on what at least a good writer with a good idea, whatever. I mean, it's just they're an idea that I think I can't believe they're not using them. But then we don't even have a Justice League right now, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was so disappointed when that Bendis Legion series ended because I was buying it month to month. This is the first
mhm.
time. That's the first time I'd ever bought Legion month to month.
Yeah.
And I was just bummed when they ended it, even though it wasn't like, earth shattering, but it was still good. So if I can get a situation where I feel like I can get it on the ground floor with Legion,
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
But I will also go back if somebody says, "Oh, this is a really, really good Legion story," or especially this is a really, really good Legion Substitute Heroes story. So like there was a couple of Brave and the Bold issues that had some Legion and Legion Substitute Heroes in. I went and read that. There was some adventure comics with Gary Frank and Jeff Johns.
Yeah. Mhm.
Those are some pretty good Legion stories. So I've read those fairly recently. But so I under
If
the right circumstances, I would absolutely pick up Legion again.
we can talk off mic if you ever want recommendations of Legion runs that you should really read, and I think you would like.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some that I think are worth mentioning.
All right. Any final thoughts on the Legion of Superheroes?
DC, bring them back.
No kidding. All right. So I guess we're going to talk next about some stuff that we've been reading. So I think,
Yeah.
Mike, I know you've got pages and pages of notes on stuff that you've been reading recently. I'm going to have to flip through and see what it is I've been reading recently because I don't remember.
What's bad is I think the first time months ago I actually had a list of a lot of things and we couldn't get through them all, so I sort of blacked out, or I highlighted the ones I thought I highlighted the ones I covered and then left the ones I hadn't covered unhighlighted. And now I'm not even sure, so I'm afraid I'm going to repeat myself. I didn't go back and listen to the episodes, so I really don't want to repeat myself. So I came up with a couple.
Start one, and I'll tell you if you've talked about it before.
Oh no, I've even got rid of them. So
okay, all right.
If we're going to go round robin, I'm going to first talk about Traveling to Mars. Have you heard about this comic?
I have not heard of this.
It's a Mark Russell book with Robert Melly as the artist, and the premise is it's in the not so distant future when Earth has sort of depleted its resources for fossil fuels. Roy Livingston's the name of the main character. He was selected somehow, I forgot how, but he was selected to be the first person to go to Mars to lay claim to the planet. So just like any other piece of land, whether it's on our planet or not, first people that could lay claim to it, or in this case it's not governments, but it's a company that could lay claim to a deposit of natural gas that all of those rovers and things that they had dropped on the planet had detected. So they're like, oh my gosh, we got a whole new resource of fossil fuels. We need to be the company that gets there first. So the company somehow picks him to go, but the problem is they don't have the technology to return the person back to Earth. But that isn't a problem for Roy Livingston because he's terminally ill. So now you might get an idea of some of the Mark Russell stuff, because his stuff's usually pretty dark and cynical and political, sort of like, have messages and stuff. But basically the story is, it's really good about talking about, it just shows how this guy Roy is contemplating all of the regrets he's had about relationships with his family, with his wife, and it's it's mixed with a lot of good humor, but at the same time social commentary, which is right up Russell's alley. It's good. It's good. It really is. And there's one more issue to come out, I believe, and I'm just waiting, one or two. But it's one book that I've been waiting on the edge of my seat for every month, or however long it takes to read.
And that title again is Traveling
to Mars.
Traveling to Mars. Oh, okay.
By Blaze Publishing.
All right, Shad, what do you got?
I've been reading a couple of just kind of bits and pieces of stuff, a lot of like just new stuff that's come out, and so one of them is I did pick up the Ultimate X-Men #1, just because I'm curious of Peach Momoko kind of handling the X-Men in an ongoing series, and I felt like, you know, last time we talked about what we've been reading, I had read all the Demon Wars and all that stuff, and was kind of a little bit lukewarm as I had left it. But I feel like her art is a little bit tighter, and maybe with her doing ongoing, she had to not have this kind of free flow, artsy kind of style as much, and kind of go a little bit more. Definitely still wouldn't call it house. It's still her style. You can still tell that it's her, but just feels a little tighter. And the story is kind of spooky. It's a little bit of like a horror ghost story, and it feels like they're filled with ghosts, mystery, murder mystery kind of thing. It feels a little bit like, I don't think you guys have read it, but anybody out there who had the newest Dead Boy Detective series that was I can't remember who had done that story, but it feels like that, where we're bringing in ghosts from like the Japanese folklore a little bit more, and all of that into modern X-Men kind of storytelling. It follows this kind of teenage girl. Her name is Hizako, and she's kind of wants to live this normal life, but kind of gets pulled in with these ghosts that are haunting her, and so it doesn't even really feel like an X-Men story out the gate. So I'm curious to see where they go with it. But issue 1's the only thing that's out as of right now. But I definitely want to keep reading it and see where they're going to take it and how they're going to really pull it in and make it X-Men-y.
Yeah.
Well, a series that I've read the first 20 issues of is the latest Ghost Rider series. And I started reading this because they introduced a new character back in one of our previews episodes. There was a new character named Talia Warroad that got introduced. And I went and picked up a graded copy of her first appearance. And it's like, well, all right, I got the graded copy, but is this a character worth actually holding on to that graded copy of this comic just in case? So I thought, well, let's go read the comic book. That's a novel idea. So that's really the reason why I decided to do this. Johnny Blaze hadn't been Ghost Rider. It kind of been floating around between Robbie Reyes and Danny Ketch, and I think there was even another Ghost Rider in there someplace. But we kind of get the Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider back, and this Talia Warroad gets introduced over the first few issues as basically a government agent she's tasked with like investigating the supernatural. And as the story progresses, she kind of has this pretty dark history in the supernatural, but she develops this really close relationship very quickly, a very close relationship with Johnny Blaze. So like I said, I'm in the first 20 issues. I'm reading it on Marvel Unlimited, so I think that's the most recent one. I don't know if the series is going or if it's wrapped up. I probably should have double checked that. But if you're a fan of Supernatural or of course Ghost Rider, then I would suggest picking it up if those aren't your cup of tea. That it's not like groundbreaking in any shape, form, or fashion, but I do like the character. There's some creepy things that that Johnny Blaze and Talia Warroad do, but it's good. It's good. Not great, but it's good. So I don't regret reading it. So
I'd like to read it might be something I should do. I mean, I've got my list of things I want to read, and it makes it really easy when you have the apps now. So, but Ghost Rider is a character I've really never delved into at all. I mean, I don't know much more than the name of Johnny Blaze and the basic premise, So,
to be honest, there aren't a lot of really good Ghost Rider stories.
Yeah.
They are few and far between. This is as good of a run as Ghost Rider as I have read, short of just like the origin story,
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
What do you got next, Mike?
Okay, so I got the Wonder Woman. I'm reading the Tom King Wonder Woman series.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in right there. I'm only on issue 4, and that was gonna be the second story that I want to talk about. So I'm not
talking about Wonder Woman stories. I was going to talk about the Trinity special.
Okay, all right. That's okay.
That first appeared in the Wonder Woman stories as backups, and I'm just going to speak very generically.
No, you can talk about that all you want.
Okay. So the Trinity special came out just this month. It's by, the stories were written by Josie Campbell, Tom King, Balin. The art was by Balin Ortega and Daniel Sampere. And we all know Tom King. Josie Campbell's a pretty good writer. I've come to really like some of her stuff. I didn't like some other stuff that she was doing, but
what
basically,
else has she written?
Power Girl, maybe.
Okay. I'm just seeing if you knew. It's okay. Go on.
Yeah. So it was a test. I don't know. I've read her. I recognize the name, and I remember having that I don't know if I like the way they're going with it, but it may not even have been her. So these 3 stories, I think, were broken down as the World's Finest Part 1, 2, and 3. And it starts with the first story is that it's set in the future, of course, where we have the daughter of Diana, Wonder Woman, and she's maybe 8 years old. Her name's Lizzie. I'm trying to think what her full name is. I think it's Elizabeth. Yeah. And I think John or Tom King named her after one of the either William Moulton Marston's wife or his consort, basically, that they had that unique relationship. And he named her after her. And anyway, Lizzie Prince is 8 years old, and John and Damien are basically stuck babysitting. And, they're a couple years older, and you can just imagine the personalities. John's a very accepting and tolerant and open-minded guy, and Damien's just complaining the whole time. The next story is basically at the Fortress of Solitude, and they're working on, working on the supercomputer, and it's slice of life type stuff. The Black Mercy gets involved in that story. The last chapter is really great. It's got that Daniel Sampere art. I mean, he's fantastic, man. I mean, if you like that non-stylistic kind of art, it's so good. And it's basically where they're on Themyscira on Paradise Island, and Trinity challenged her brothers, her quote unquote brothers, Jonathan and Damien, to a kangaroo race to decide the name of their team. I can't remember what the team was about, but it's just cool stuff, and I liked it a lot. It's I don't know how King does it. He switches things left and right, and if it doesn't have too much to do with continuity, or it doesn't have that fatal flaw, as you like to call it, Scott, then it's so enjoyable.
Okay, we'll come back to that fatal flaw.
Okay.
Shad, what do you got?
I went down a little bit of a James Tynion IV rabbit hole. I was actually intending on reading Nice House on the Lake before we got to this episode, but I didn't get to that point because I got caught up in the Deviant, which it came out, I think the first issue came out like November or December of last year. But they've got a collected volume 1, which is the first 4 issues of it. It's a 9-part thing, and it's about a serial killer in the 70s that dressed up like Santa Claus and like murdered a bunch of young boys. And then 50 years later, there's a guy that is interviewing the serial killer in prison, and like getting his whole story. And so it's this really cool back and forth. I'm not really usually into a back and forth of timelines kind of story, but this one, the art's great. It's by Joshua Hickson, and it does a really good job of keeping the flow between the two, and it's just a really cool, weird, psychological kind of thriller about, and I kind of dabble in reading about serial killers and whatnot. And it has this whole like kind of queer identity part of it, where the serial killer was a gay man, and the guy that's interviewing him is a gay man as well, and so they kind of are bonding on that side of things, and the fact that he was a gay man in the 70s that actually is innocent from this murder altogether, but was persecuted because he was different than everyone else at that time, and so it's got a lot of cool layers in it, so I think it's been done really well. And I was looking, and issue 5 doesn't even come out till May, and it's like, oh man, there's a big gap, because I think February was issue 4, and now May before we pick up the story again, which is unfortunate. But I will tail on to that I also started the World Tree, because I know that you guys are both getting World Tree. And I am not quite done with the first volume, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I am the Deviant. Let's just say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I still haven't started World Tree yet. I have all the issues. Not read the first one.
I've read the first 3. I think.
Yeah, it's not horrible. I've read, I think, the first 4, so I'm not too far ahead of you. But it's just like, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Is my big complaint, I think, with that. The pacing is just kind of like, we're just establishing a bunch of people, and this weird lady who keeps killing people and is not wearing clothes at all.
I was waiting see if that would come up. Completely naked, completely.
Wow, okay.
Completely naked, killing people all the time.
So as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Tom King Wonder Woman series. I'm only going to talk about the first 4 issues. So I guess we have, at least in joke wise, developed this concept that this is sometimes the Tom King podcast, because we talk about his stuff so often. But one thing that I've always, and you alluded to, Mike, is that I always find this incredible fatal flaw that affects my enjoyment in all these Tom King stories. And I have not 1 but 2 with the Wonder Woman story. So I want to say it's good. It's well written. The artwork is really, really good. I like the premise. However, this premise has been done before, and not that long ago. So the idea of, tell me if you've heard this story before. So a near mythological being ends up killing a lot of civilians in the United States, and the United States government responds by banning superheroes, or at least the mythological beings. Have you heard this story before? Well, guess what? That was Siege from Marvel back in 2008, and that's basically the premise of what happens here in Wonder Woman. So you have an Amazonian in a bar fight. The guys at the bar get a little handsy with the Amazon. That's their mistake. She ends up killing 1 or 2 of them. I can't remember the exact numbers. And then it's this mass outcry against anybody from Themyscira who is, powered, and basically they are all kicked out of the country. And so to me, 1, it's a repetitive story. 2, the idea that an entire country would turn on, Wonder Woman that quickly, based on the history that Wonder Woman has in the DC universe, I can see there being some, some of the other Amazons, maybe there was an issue, but it felt like if they wrote a law, there would have been an accept Wonder Woman or accept Diana Prince clause in any type of law that would excuse her from that. But no, they go full in, and in fact, the government is actively chasing her down. Brings in Sergeant Steele, who is basically the Harry Osborn of the Wonder Woman story, as a la S.H.I.E.L.D. And then the other flaw is Tom King has this weird fixation with suicide. And this pops up repeatedly in a lot of his books. I mean, it was the fatal flaw, in my opinion, in Mr. Miracle. And there's a scene. Now, the person was influenced by something called the lasso of lies, as opposed to the lasso of truth, is what ultimately caused this person to kill themselves. But they have this, again, he just has this fixation with suicide. And I assume that there are some traumatic events in his life that lead to this, and probably maybe not traumatic events in his life, but people that he knows from his time military and government work. But But yeah, so again, if you can get past those things, the repeat story, the fixation on suicide, the big negative turn on Wonder Woman, which I don't think would have happened, right? Then it's well written. That willing suspension of disbelief. You can accept those things. Then it's really, really good. I'm through the first 4. I'm going to finish it. I guess there are 6 issues available. I don't know how long this series is supposed to go, but it's actually been really, really solid. So
I'll save my comments for maybe when we do another Tom King review, because I agree with you on some level with some of these, with what you're saying, but not all. And I think we would belabor a few points too long on this episode, because this is really what we've been reading. It's not for me to counter anything what you're saying, because there are some valid points, but also different viewpoints, I think, maybe come into play. So maybe we'll do that some other time.
All right, sounds good. So anything else that you've read recently that you're just dying to talk about?
Well, speaking of dying, yes. It's something that I would have expected Shad to bring up, but it's a serial killer book. It's Where Monsters Lie by
Kyle Stark.
Kyle Stark. And I bought it at SIU Con last year. It was just the first issue I got, but I mean, what's not to like about serial killers living in a gated community and accidentally being outed by a victim who got away and brought the cops back with him. So it's good. It's good. Enough that I'm going to go back and get the subsequent issues, or maybe get the first trade or something. But
yeah,
it's so good. It's like, I mean, it's all your stereotypical types of serial killers. You know, the clown and all the different ones. I would just, yeah. So that was a lot of fun and made me wish I had more than just the first issue.
I forgot about that. I'm in. All right. I got to get that too.
I just want to throw out there, because Kyle Starks was the guest at my show in Harrisburg just a couple of years ago, and he's starting to hit it big. You know, he's had a lot of more work with kind of the big two, as Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
But he also had and I'm trying to find, he had a book that was picked up called Kill 'Em All, that is going to be apparently turned into a series or special on like one of the streaming services. So yeah, his career has really taken off the last year or two. So it's amazing what a appearance at a small Harrisburg comic book convention can do.
Yeah.
Well, if he's listening out there, my offer still stands. I told him I would be his free expert witness, or, you know, content expert on serial killers, because I worked on Death Row for so long. So I can get. He was like really enthralled with some of the John Gacy stories I was telling him.
Okay. So, okay, Shad, anything else?
I got one more real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. I read the first issue of Spectacular Spider-Man. I read some Marvel stuff this past month.
Yeah, I was shocked.
I know, I was too. I didn't intend on it. It was like afterwards, I kind of was like, well, I'll try that out. But I didn't realize that Greg Weisman was writing this book, and Greg Weisman is most famously known for writing the majority of the Gargoyles TV show, and we all know how much I love Gargoyles. And he has recently been writing the Gargoyles comic books, and I guess has been picked up from Marvel to write this Spectacular Spider-Man book, which is the team up between Peter Parker and Miles Morales. So it is really good. It's the only reason I picked it up was because he was writing it. I wouldn't normally pick up. I take that back. I typically will read the first issue of any Spider-Man book because I'm hoping to find one that actually grabs me. And they all seem to take themselves too seriously, or they're trying to be edgy, or they're trying to be something that they're not. And this book is just fun. It's just that it is Peter Parker as the older, kind of seasoned veteran, Miles Morales as the teenager, and then hanging out together, swapping stories, talking about their villains, and dealing with, villains in the middle of it, but mostly just them trying to like hang out together, and it just being awkward kind of because Peter's in his 30s and Miles is like in his late teens, early 20s, and they're just kind of, it's just a cool, I think Ash had talked about it, kind of a day, or one of you, I talked about a day in the life of kind of comic, and This had a little bit of that in the middle of them dealing with a big villain in the middle of it. So I just really enjoyed that aspect of it, and we'll continue to probably pick that up for a little bit and see kind of where Wiseman takes that story.
It sounds like the end of the Spider-Verse relationship that those two characters had.
And it might be kind of pulled from that a little bit, or at least influenced by that a little bit.
Because I really enjoyed those movies, so that makes me maybe want to pick that up. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. So Mike, you want to embarrass me with trivia first, or you want to talk about some comments on the Facebook page first?
Well, I've got the comments up here in front of me, so
okay.
let's talk a little bit about feedback. So our biggest contributor on feedback is Eric from the Long Box Review, and we really appreciate Eric. He's the quickest person to kind of respond to some of our comments, and it's a great interaction. And by the way, Eric and Peter Rios have their own podcast on the Legion called The Legion Project, and they're covering the Baxter series from the 80s. So just a plug for them there. But Eric responded, gave us some feedback on our episode 178, which was the Sweet Tooth and another What We've Been Reading episode. And he mentioned that he hasn't been the biggest Lemire fan, but from what our discussions covered, he was inspired to maybe read some of those books. He's not been a big fan of the art, but he's going to give it a try anyway. And he totally agreed with me, Butterfinger Atchison, about House on the Lake. Nice House on the Lake. And he was surprised how much it pulled him in. He wasn't put off as much as you were with the Scott about the art being. I don't know if you discussed it with him or just me, but I agree with you, Scott, that sometimes the art was with that many characters that you're thrown at you all at once. You needed some little bit more distinction in who was who. But you replied to him about that was you hadn't been a big fan of Tynion, but having heard what Eric had to say about it, that you might give it a try. So anyway, then Eric also said he was talking about. Oh no, he was just going back and forth about you. You were trying to remember which one you didn't like. It was Once and Future. So anyway, episode 179, he also commented on. Eric said that he was looking forward to. I guess I had made the announcement of the pit stop episodes on the Roadshow, and when Shad touted that our next episode would it be the first 5 of the Legion, he said, "I know I'll be listening to that." And he asked you directly. Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something to say?
I was to say, and hey, here it is. So
yeah. I look forward to it. Yeah, I definitely want to hear what Eric has to say about our comments, because he and Peter are like two of the experts I would know about Legion stuff. So
you can correct us on all the things that we said.
That's right. That's right.
And usually it'll be me that says all the wrong stuff. So
yeah. And then going to just a little feedback for the Roadshow episode 14. I got some comments through Messenger from Paul Hicks from Australia, and he really enjoyed the interviews. That episode that he's commenting on was in Lubbock, Texas, Star Comics, and that's where Alex Ross grew up. So he was a customer there, and it was really a good interview. I mean, not all of them turned out as well as that one did. So yeah, it was a lot of fun hearing that from him. And then finally, from another guy that Shad and I met out at HeroesCon, Keith G. Baker. Do you remember meeting him, Shad?
Oh, absolutely.
Great guy. Yeah. He sent I don't know what, I can't tell from my copy and paste where it came from. Might have been Twitter. But he said, "Hey, Campus Comics, if y'all like the Bass Reeves comics, I'd highly recommend the recent miniseries on Paramount Plus called Lawmen, Bass Reeves." And he says he thinks each season is going to be based on or covering a different Old West figure. So
cool.
You and I mean, Scott, we talked about that, especially as it connected, it was solicited in previews, that one shot. And then also we had a common discussion about it on the Watchmen series.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So that's somebody I had not heard of as a historical figure until the Watchmen series.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was,
Yeah.
so you can learn some stuff. You can learn some stuff watching, watching comics, watching comics based shows and reading comics. So, and then of course you had the comment, your roadshow episode about Covert Collectibles in Gulf Shores, where I guess one of the guys that worked there also basically subscribed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Mike Campbell. Thank you for the comment there. So.
Yes, absolutely. I think that came out after I copied and put this together, but it's always nice when you get like a customer from the store or somebody that's aware of that store and they're like, oh yeah, this is a great shop. And they kind of reinforce what we're talking about. Makes the whole thing a lot of fun.
All right. So Mike's going to be pulling out the comic book trivia from Blood Moon. It's my turn to get embarrassed, live on a live recording, as I am unable to answer these trivia questions. Man, after that first one, the back cover and the first page, I thought these are cinch. I think I was 10 out of 11. I was embarrassed by the one that I missed, and I think I've gotten just 4 right since then. So they cranked up the difficulty after the first page is all I'm going to say. So so Mike, do you remember how many you got right as you were going through this?
I got 2.5 right.
Ooh, okay. All right.
So I can't even count. So it's 2, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how I do. If I beat 2, then you can have 2.5.
Okay.
If I only get to 2, you're stuck at 2.
Okay. It's just I am so I'm all on the DC side, so I'm lucky to get 50%. Okay. Are you ready?
Well, no, but go ahead.
Okay. The first out of the 8 questions is, name the character other than Korek that first appeared in Adventure into Fear number 19 in 1973.
19. I believe that should be Howard the Duck.
Ding, ding, ding. Good job.
Oh.
Okay. I have that comic, by the way. I think I do anyway. I had it at one time. Maybe I don't have it anymore. So.
Okay.
Written by Steve Gerber, I think.
Yeah, Steve Gerber was the creator, right? Yeah.
All
wow.
Right. Whew. Okay. At least I'm not getting shut out. That's a good start.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. Here comes a non-Big 2 question. Okay. What is the full name of the main character in the comic Usagi Yojimbo?
I would have thought that it was just Usagi Yojimbo.
That's what I would have thought too, but
yeah, but no, not. Okay. I'm not gonna have any answer.
Usagio Lawrence Jimbo. Got a middle name in there. That's what we're missing.
It's Miyamoto Usagi. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay. So Miyamoto Usagi. So the Yojimbo. Yeah. Yojimbo's a title. So that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. You know what? I probably could have guessed that. I used to play Legends of the Five Rings card game, and one of the Dragon Clan, main Dragon Clan members was Miyamoto. So I should have been able to guess that in some random alternate universe, but not this one. So question number 3.
Okay, pal. Number 3.
Mm-hmm.
This character, also known as Weapon XIII, which would be Weapon 8, was created by the Weapon Plus program to serve as Super Sentinel against Earth's mutant population.
Does it give any time frame on that?
No, but now I know the answer now, so
okay,
I know the time frame based on that.
Okay, well, my guess is going to be, and only primarily because I have been trying to, when I find this character's first appearances, I've been buying them, so I'm going to go with Nimrod from X-Men 191.
Nope, that's the wrong answer.
Summer, okay.
If I give you the hint that
it
was in the Morrison run, the new X-Men.
New X-Men run? Ooh.
I believe.
Okay. No, that doesn't help me any at all.
Okay. So. And I may be wrong about it. The first time I read about this character, and that's Phantom X.
Phantom X. Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. That's what is that? X-Men, New X-Men, like 127 or something like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Yep. I didn't realize he was part of Weapon X.
Now, Scott, if you were being generous, you should let Shad take a shot at this because this is.
Oh, okay. No, that's it's actually. Shad, I apologize, Shad. I'm like, hogging
this
here. Okay. So.
But this is more common knowledge stuff. We know that, if we were to ask, if Shad were to pick the questions, Scott and I wouldn't get anything right. So.
That's why we chose this because we're not writing the questions,
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah.
Shad, you want to give us a shot first? It's who is the superhero daughter of Hippolyta?
Is that Wonder Woman?
Scott, do you have an answer?
Okay. Hyp Hippolyta?
Hippolyta or Hippolyta, however you want to pronounce it.
All right. I will agree with that. So.
Okay, you guys as a team both get a point.
Thank you. All right.
There you Shad. That's inclusiveness, man. We'll keep.
Wow. Thank goodness for that first 5 Wonder Woman, right?
That's right. Yes.
Right. Okay, so we're at 2. Okay. Out of what is it?
Okay.
2 out of 4?
Here's my half pointer because. Okay, so what is the full name of the mutant Storm?
Aurora Monroe.
And you got 100%. I could not get past Aurora. And even then I was like conflating her with from Star Trek.
Well, I'm going, oh gosh, does she have a middle name? Am I supposed to come up with her middle name? If she has a middle name, I would have never gotten it.
I couldn't get Monroe for the life of me. Okay, so you so
3
far you
for
got
5.
One,
okay, all right.
2, 3, yeah.
Okay, feeling good.
Okay,
feeling
now
strong.
this one, either one of you might be able to get. It's just a matter of you count it out. Okay, what is the 5th word in the Green Lantern Oath?
Oh God.
Okay, I got it.
You just got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In brightest day, in blackest. So blackest.
Okay.
Correctamundo.
All right. Yes. I assume you got that one right, Mike.
Yeah, I got that one.
Okay,
that was one of my 2. Yeah. 2.5, whatever.
Okay.
What was the intended purpose of the machine that exploded and resulted in Dr. Doom's disfigurement?
Oh gosh. Okay. I think I'm falling for a retcon here. But I think it was to save his mother. Do I need to be more specific?
You got the mother part right. She's involved.
Well, she has to be to rescue the mother from Mephisto in hell.
I'm going to give that to you because it's really it's kind of academic to say what the answer says is to communicate with the dead, specifically his dead mother.
Okay.
So
I may be falling for a little bit of a retcon there. That may have been later on what it turned into. I knew it. I was thinking it had something to do, because there's several stories about him trying to free his mother's soul. So.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, you know what? I actually got this last one right. So never mind. Okay. Still, you beat me. So anyway, how many issues? I mean, yeah, I'm more in the numbers things than some people, but how many issues was the 1984 Secret Wars event comprised of?
So. That would be. Do you want to give an answer first, Shad? I have my answer.
12.
I will second Shad's answer.
And that's a ding, ding, ding for both.
Really?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. Wow.
So how many that time? That's 6.
So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nice job.
All right.
That is a record, I think, for chapters.
Oh, okay. So put Mike on the hot seat next time. So.
Yeah, I'm marking this so I don't accidentally flip to the next page.
Flip to the next page. Yeah.
What are we gonna do when this comic is over? I mean,
I don't know. We can come up with something. We'll see if we still want to keep doing it or not.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's fun, but maybe it will run its course by the time we're done with this book. So.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we got left? Oh, CLZ Shake, right? We're ready for CLZ Shake. Shad, you got yours ready to go?
I do. Oh, okay. I just actually looked at this. This is Gunpowder Witch #1, written by a somewhat local Jordan Williams. I think he's out of Cape, if I'm not mistaken, and Stash Publishing, which I don't think exists anymore. But I definitely was big on Gunpowder Witch. I enjoyed this quite a bit. It's a witch story set in like Salem and everything, but done. I don't remember what the shtick is behind it, and since it's a local comic, there's not like a synopsis to kind of bail me out on this. But he drew and wrote on it. You know how much I love somebody who does double duty. And you can find Gunpowder Witch, I do believe, on like Comixology or Amazon. I think I looked it up not too long ago because I think there's like 3 issues of it, if I'm not mistaken. But I definitely enjoyed that book.
Well, speaking of that, we need to get it. I mean, we haven't done like a series, just a read and cover, just a random series that one of us recommends like that, you know. So we should throw some ideas around sometime soon.
Good call. Yeah, absolutely.
How many? Just out of curiosity, how many comics are in your CLZ collection at the current time?
Oh, let's see. I'm currently at 2,200.
Wow. Okay. See, I only have 1,404 in what I consider my collection. So.
And mine is dwindling daily. I keep pulling stuff out and getting rid of them. So I've continued. I'm hoping to get down below your number at some point in time.
Okay. All right. Mike, what about you? How many?
Digits.
It's kind of incriminating. So let me look around the room here. Honey, you here?
You can say it.
It's 12,638.
Okay, you got a couple more than me, so.
Yeah. I need to get rid of a few. Trust me.
All right, what's your shake at, Mike? What do you got?
Oh, okay. Okay, got to put glasses on. Okay, back in the 90s, they had this thing, late 90s, early 2000s, Secret Files and Origins. Uh-huh. I mean, they did it for a lot of the popular books, and this one was a guide to the DC universe. So any bibliophile that liked to look at, you know, what the origins of things were, I don't know about so much the secrets, but it was always kind of cool. It was sort of an update to the Who's Who. It was sort of an update to, you know, Secret Origins. It was fun, and I've never gotten rid of any of them. I've always been glad that I've gotten them. I've never really gone back though, as like a, you know, since the advent of the internet, you don't have as much reason to go back and look up a book for information, but to me, it's comforting to know that I have it in case I need to find out more about Bart Allen, you know, Impulse, or Pat Dugan, Stripe, or whoever. So those are some of the people that were covered, characters that were covered in this particular issue.
All right, so here we go. Which ROM issue will it be this time?
Oh, Conan
the Barbarian, issue 32. So, okay, now this is actually in here for a very specific reason. So as you may know, I set up at, oh man, I shook it again and it went away. So Conan the Barbarian number 32. I haven't actually read this issue. It's in my personal collection because I set up at conventions, and there's this guy. His name is, well, I will say his name because I don't have permission to say his name. But he for a while was attending the shows regularly, and he told me he had a letter published. So in this particular issue of Conan the Barbarian is this letter that this guy's published. And now I got a funny story that since I'm talking about this, I got to tell the funny story. So apparently this is right after Barry Windsor Smith stopped drawing Conan and Buscema took over. So this guy wrote a letter to Marvel telling them how bad this new artist was.
Oh, wow. You know, Buscema's good, but it's hard to measure up to Barry Windsor Smith, no matter who you are.
And they published the letter. So to follow up with this, a couple of years ago at the Superman celebration, I was set up there selling, and I knew that this guy was going to show up because he told me he was going to come. So another guy that was setting up there, I said, hey, I'm going to tell this guy that you are Roy Thomas's brother and that you got a beef to pick with him. So this guy, he comes in and I say, you know who that is over there? He says, that's Roy Thomas. That's Roy Thomas's brother. And the guy waves at him real big.
Oh, no.
And like we sit there and talk for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes or so like that. And then he looks at me as serious as he can be. He's like, do I need to go over there and talk to him? I'm like, we're kidding. It's a joke. I'd actually forgotten all about it. So, but yeah, so that's why that book is in my collection. That will always bring back that memory of, and I actually have about 5 or 6 comics that I have just because somebody I know has a letter published in them. I'm still trying to find the Dan Brown issues where he's got some stuff published.
Yeah.
I don't have any of those yet, but and I need to get those.
That's a good.
Again, so
that would be cool to start buying some based on who you know that's been published. You know, it's funny you sent. I bought my first Conan the Barbarian comic today. I went up to a comic shop to do an interview today in South St. Louis. I don't want to reveal it. Don't want to spoil it for anyone, but I bought a few back issues along with what was recommended. But one of them was Conan the Barbarian, I think like 19 maybe, and it was I was struck by the cover, and then I seen it was Barry Windsor Smith, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to get this, even if it's beat up. I got it for like $5. It's just beautiful. So yeah, it's funny you bring that up.
I've got a handful of Conan issues. I'm not a huge Conan fan, but I have an issue 1. I have issue 14, which is first appearance of Elric. I've got, I guess I could just look at CLZ, right? Couldn't I? So actually, I don't have my 14 in my inventory here. So I guess that's all I have is 1, 14, and 32. I thought I had a first Red Sonja, but I don't have the first Red Sonja apparently. I've owned it, but I sold it. So. But yeah. All right, so Shad, what's coming up on the next couple of episodes of the Campus Comics cast?
Next episode, we're going to be doing our JL April special. I said it right, and then so look forward to that, where we cover Swamp Thing Annual 3, Volume 2, if I remember right. And then after that, we're going to be covering our pre-orders. It's going to be pre-order time, where we cover the Next Phase catalog and everything else.
So, Shad, you're the musician of the three of us. I mean, like 100 times
try,
over.
yeah.
You're 100 times
sometimes
the talent. And so Tim Price was the podcaster that organized JL April. So he had each of us that were going to cover one of the stories for the event record ourselves saying JL April to the tune of Shock the Monkey by Peter Gabriel. Yeah. So, and then he blended all of the tracks together.
Oh, I heard it.
Oh yeah, I heard it too. Man, if there's not something looking for a copyright takedown notice, that I've never heard anything before.
Oh, they don't care about us.
That's right.
But that was funny. I was like, I do not want to try to sing it, but I gotta at least get the beats.
I was wondering, because I wasn't familiar with the song, but I was like, what are they doing?
Oh, you don't know Shock the Monkey by Peter Gabriel?
Oh my gosh,
I guess not, but
oh my gosh,
it's his greatest hits album. It's so good.
Peter Gabriel's so good.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I actually drove by his house
cool.
last fall. Yeah, true story.
That's creepy.
I mean, I was on a bus full of other people. I wasn't really driving.
All right.
I watched him while he slept.
Speaking of serial killers.
You've been reading too many of these horror comics, Chad. Criminy.
All right, Mike, if somebody wanted to track you down, where would they do that at?
At Mike Atchison 5 on Twitter and m.atchison90 at gmail.com if they want to email.
Chad?
You can find me on Facebook at Shad Schubert. That's SHAAD SCHUBERT. And hopefully by the time this comes out, I'll have my song 3 Weeks will be on Spotify and everywhere else that you can listen to it. So fingers crossed.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, BURG comics.com, with links to my social media pages and eBay store. And I got a new thing that I'm collecting, so I need to put a list up on the website. I'm a beach volleyball fan, so I've decided I'm going to start collecting comics that have beach volleyball on the cover or in the issues. Unfortunately, my list so far is only like about 25, 30 books. So I'm looking for things that I have missed. I'm going to focus primarily on non-manga, but if I may end up picking up some manga stuff too, because there's a lot more of it. But yeah, I've actually grabbed a couple. So
interesting.
All right, and we'll be back soon with some episodes. And as I think about it, we may change the order, but that's neither here nor there. We'll be back soon.
Celebrating the tradition of apes in comics. For 2024, Gorilla Grodd has transformed JL May into JL April, exploring a phylum of amazing apes, such as
Batman Annual number 23,
Wonder Woman number 170,
Kong on the Planet of the Apes, issue 1,
Angel and the Ape,
The Helmet of Fate, Detective Chimp,
Showcase number 77,
JLA vs. Godzilla vs. Kong,
Swamp Thing Volume 2, Annual 3,
Kongorilla, issues 1 through 4.
with a host of podcast all-stars like
The Bat Pod,
Resurrections, an Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast,
Outcasters, a Batman and the Outsiders podcast,
Dolly for Flanger,
The Quarter Bin Podcast,
Coffee and Comic,
Once Upon a Geek,
Fanholes Podcast,
Married with Content with John and Maggie,
Campus Comics Cast,
and many more. Look for the hashtag JLApril2024 on social media, the podcast crossover event that doesn't monkey around.
JL April, JL April, JL April, JL April.
Damn dirty ape.
Monkey around? Really?
Yeah, so if you ever come across reading a book and there's beach volleyball, or even any volleyball in it at all, just make a mental note. I gotta post this list because
that is a unique idea. I had never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, because I've got so the first two that I know that I have are that I kept a Marvel Age 53 because it's got a beach volleyball scene on the cover.
Missing?
That's the one you're missing. You know, that's the only one you're missing now is issue number 53.
I'm getting quite the collection of Marvel.
Well, I gave you a stack like that, so
they got great covers too.
You've got about 25% of them now, I think. So. And then the other one I picked up was this Marville, Marville, It's a Greg Land cover, but it's got somebody who looks sort of like Mary Jane Watson. But I don't think it's Mary Jane Watson holding the beach volleyball in front of a net. So
I will be on the lookout.
Yeah, I think you probably own, but you won't want to get rid of it. But it doesn't have it on the cover. But Legion of Superheroes 286, the very first splash page, they're playing volleyball. So I guess I could look at it on the iPad, right? We'll see if it's on there. So
do you want like more modern books too?
I want anything that is volleyball. Now, I'll post the list that I have. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be torn because do I really want Street Fighter Summer Sports Special with Cannon and LP or the Lady Death Sexy Sport Volleyball variant cover? I don't know if I want those.
I've got an X-Men swimsuit edition, but I don't know if they have volleyball in it.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, I'm not. It's not the swimsuit stuff. It's really more about it's definitely about the volleyball.
Okay, well, I'll be on the lookout. I love looking for stuff like that. Yeah, I read I have a bunch of like Harley Quinn, and I feel like at some point they're playing volleyball on the Palmy Icona run.
I'll have to double check that because I have a large portion of that run already. So. But yeah, it was kind of I feel like Marvel.
Feels like it.
Yeah, and I feel like there's an X-Men annual or something. But usually they're playing like basketball or something like that.
They're always good at having those little ball games going on in X-Men.
And I've owned this comic I don't know how many times, but I don't think I have it at the current time. But this is the one that on the first page. They're playing basketball.
And looky there, there's
Colossal Boy. Yeah. I think he's cheating.
Yeah, I guess. He can spike it pretty easily, couldn't he? Yeah. Well, consider it. I will give you my own copy if I have to, but I'll give you that 286.
That's all right. That 286 should not be expensive. It should be in dollar bins someplace, you know. So it's just a matter of taking this list and tracking it down. It's like, and then like, do I want Archie comics? It's like I found a bunch of Archie comics.
Yeah, where does the blank go? Yeah, you probably would have a bunch of Archie comics that were.
Well, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Archie books so far. There's an entire series called Haikyuu, which is a manga series. It's like 20-something volumes of that series. That's nothing but volleyball. So I haven't decided how far I'm gonna go. Now, something I did learn about is that Image has a series called Mara, a 6-issue series, and the main character is a professional volleyball player who's also a superhero. So yeah, anyway, there's a lot. So I got like 23 covers, and then I've got interiors. I've only found specifically interiors for 3, but I figured, well, if I'm starting this list and I find something, I might as well put it on the list. That way, if I do find it later on, I can cross off the list. So
yeah.